Alright folks, welcome to this video. In this video we are going to talk about how to design your own sprinkler system with the Orbit Sprinkler System Designer tool. This is a free tool that gives you a complete layout of your yard as well as all the parts you're going to need, and it even lets you buy those parts online delivered right to your door. So it's a really great tool to use. If you're getting started and getting a new sprinkler system in your yard or making some improvements, this is the tool definitely want to check out. So we'll run through the tutorial and show you exactly how to get started. As you see here, I'm on the website. The website is design.orbitonline.com, and it's going to require you to create an account. You can make as many plans as you'd like, so you can try some different things. And if you are expecting to make some improvements to your landscape over the coming years, you may want to play around with what those will do to your irrigation system or require from your irrigation system. This will let you do that. So before we get started, there's a couple things you'll want to be aware of, things you're going to need to know before you start designing your plan. Those basically revolve around flow rate, the flow rate of your system, which we need to determine. That is going to, if you don't know those numbers, you're not going to get an accurate reading, and it could give you a plan that's probably not accurate enough to really go off of. So flow rate is an important thing to determine. The way you determine flow rate, there's really three pieces of information you're going to need to know. One is the pipe size of your main line, and if you want to just check out that video here in the top right, that'll show you how to find out your pipe size. Very simple, takes just a couple minutes. The next thing you'll need to know is your actual gallons per minute flow rate, and that's done with a bucket test. If you want to check out this video, again, there's a card in the top right there that will show you how to do a bucket test. That also just takes a couple minutes. And then the third thing you'll need to know is your pressure. Now that's going to require some sort of pressure gauge. These are inexpensive devices that you can obtain at in any home improvement store. We sell them on the Orbit Online store. There'll be a link down below in the description to this product. And if you want to check out that card, and again in the top right, that's a video on how you do a pressure test. So once you get those three numbers, you're going to need those later on as you design the plan, punching those in, and that will be able to allow the plan to give an accurate design, an accurate parts list of what you're going to need. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. I'm here on the website. Now I'm going to sign into the account that I have already set up, and so as I log in here, I've got a number of plans that I've created for people over the years, so you're not going to see all of these plans, but what you'll want to do is go ahead and click New to get started. Now as we get started here, it gives you two options for drawing a plan. The first option is to trace an image of your property from a program like Google Maps or Bing Maps or something like that, and we'll show you that one here in just a second. The other one is if you're in an area that's like a new home development where satellite imagery is not really available yet, which is often the case when people are putting in new sprinkler systems. You can draw the property from scratch, and that will just require you to get some measurements of like the size of your home, size of your driveway, sidewalks, things like that. But then the program can automatically scale everything appropriately. So let's go ahead and get started with the trace your property from Google Maps. So I have up Google Maps here. I have an image of some property. If you want to, you just take a screenshot of that. On my Mac, that's Control-Shift-4, if I'm not mistaken. And then we just sort of drag and drop the property we want to clip. It's going to save a picture into my downloads folder, so I can come back over here. I can say trace an image of your property from Google Maps, click continue, click import image, and there's my screenshot. So it's going to bring it in. That's quite large, so I'm going to zoom out. There, I can see it. Now it's going to ask me to scale this image. It really just takes one little line, and you just need to know the dimensions of one part of your property. So this driveway here, I know, for example, if I just drag that line across, I know that this driveway is 18 feet wide. So if I finish scaling, there we go. It's going to let me rotate the image if I need to rotate it, just sort of get it straight on those grid lines. This looks pretty good. All right, so I can go ahead and zoom in and start getting started with designing my property. So the first thing we're going to do over here on the left-hand side, it says lot. This is the this program is running sort of in a bit of a geospatial way that you've got to define the boundaries in which it works, and then you overlay on top of that any obstructions where it should not be watering. So the first thing we have to start with is defining the boundaries of our property. So I'm just going to lay down this this square piece of property here. Now there's a few controls you'll want to be aware of around the four corners of this shape. First one here at the top right is is an X. That will obviously delete any character, and this applies for all characters that you're going to create in this thing. Top left, we have this rotate button that'll let you just sort of rotate it back and forth. This is a lock button, which we'll use when we get things positioned correctly and we don't want them to move anymore. And then here at the bottom right is the expansion button, so that will let you expand those. So this one, for example, this is not quite what I need, so I'm going to pull in these different parts. What you do is basically just click on a line. It will let you pull it to where it needs to be, shrink it or expand it, whatever you need to do. Let's go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. There we go. You'll want to check that those measurements that it's showing are pretty close to accurate. That will ensure that the scaling worked right. This looks pretty good actually, so we'll move on to the next step. Now you'll see as I go along here that placing these objects, you have different ways of positioning them, of doing rounded corners, of adding new lines, things like that. So this one, first thing we're going to do is lay down the house, and as you'll see, the house sort of has this shape of the house with the foyer, so let's use that. We'll pull this in, we'll zoom in there. I need to adjust the shape just a little bit. This isn't, perfect to what my house is, so I just need to make a few little adjustments. And this corner here. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Next, we'll go to the non-watered areas. So this is laying down, like I said, any obstructions in the yard where you would not want any watering to occur. So let's start with the driveway, and that's over here. Shrink that down. Yep, 18 feet is our driveway size. Now I know, for example, that my driveway here, it actually jettisons out here towards the end. So if I click on one of these white dots, it's going to give me more points to work with. And I actually did that one wrong. So if you click on a black dot or double click on that, it's going to delete those. So I'm going to click up there, and I will actually bring this down just so I can position where that goes out a bit. All right, that looks good. Next thing I'm going to do is add the sidewalk to my boundary. Let's shrink that a bit. Starts over here. Now to make a rounded section, what you're going to want to do is grab these green dots, and as you pull them out, you'll see that it will create an arc. That's what we want in this case. So let's grab that one and sort of shrink that in. Grab that one, shrink that in, and make sure this lines up with the porch. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Actually, this is more like that. Great. Now back here we have a garage. That really can just be an obstructed feature. which can just basically be, and then that's an awning with a patio. To make sure I get that accurately. Right, and then I do have a patio back there as well, so we'll put that in. You know, really all of these things operate as just they're just features that are telling the system when it comes to laying out the sprinklers to not water these areas. So back here I have some flower beds, and we'll show you how to do those. We have some flower beds over here under these trees, all those things. So, and this is of course a shed, so I need to put that in. All right, next we'll move on to the watered areas. Some things you do want to put in is any trees, and as you can see, this property does have a lot of trees, so you can drag those and make them larger or smaller depending on where they're at. This is important just so the system knows that those might be obstructions, you know, because some of these trees are so large, they're not things that sprinklers can spray through. They're going to be things sprinklers are going to have to spray around, sort of. So let's make sure we get those all in there. We've also got the option you'll see here of shrubs, hedges, flower beds. Flower beds, I'll lay down those in just a second and show you just how those work, because they give you a couple options for you know, how you're gonna want to water those. Some you'll want drip, some you'll want you know, some other method, or some will just be watered with the lawn. So in the back here, I have these are more like some gardens. So as I select a flower bed, you'll see that it gives me the options how you want to water those. These I'm actually going to use a specific drip line, and I can tell it what type of watering I want. Emitter tubing, there's PC drippers. I'm just going to go with drip zone. That's going to just bring its own sort of zone up there to that section, and then I can use an actual drip manifold to determine what type of watering I want. We tend to change those, change what we're growing in there year to year. So sometimes it'll be vegetables where PC drippers would be more appropriate. Sometimes it's just, it could be watered with the lawn or not watered at all, actually, if we don't grow anything. All right, so we go next to special watered features. Now what this lets you do, it's an optional step, but what it lets you do is tell the system what kind of sprinklers you want it to use. By default, it's going to pick what it thinks is best. But if you have the desire for just pop-up spray heads, that would be a spray zone. You have rotator zone. Those are rotator nozzles that you put on spray heads. Not used very commonly, but they do exist in the industry. And then there's also the rotor zone, which would be like your drive sprinklers. And the different sprinklers have different needs in terms of water pressure and flow rate. So we're not going to put that in here. We're just going to let the system decide what it needs. But that is an option to use. So if you have certain specific areas or certain type of sprinklers you want to use, you can tell the system that. All right, so next we need to tell it a little bit about where certain things exist. For example, we need to know where the main line is, where it comes in. This is usually where your meter from the municipality exists. Mine is right out there. And then we need to tell it where the timer is. My timer's in the garage, so put that right there. That's going to help the system tell you where to wire. Where to wire for the timer, where to bring that wire in, and for the valves. A rain sensor is optional. Let's go ahead and just stick that on. This is a good section of the house that's kind of unobstructed. where it's not going to be covered by trees or anything like that, and it would be able to detect any rain. Now, of course, if you're using one of our smart timers like our Beehive timer, rain sensors they're an option, but they're really not necessary because you're getting real-time weather updates over the internet. So a rain sensor is kind of redundant in that case, but it is an option if you want that. All right, so next we have plan settings, and this is where those bits of information we collected at the first are going to be necessary. So the first thing I can do is name my plan. Next I need to tell it the service pipe type. This is where my main line comes in. Mine is galvanized. The pipe size is 1 inch. And my static pressure, I actually get about 55 psi, which is pretty good for our area. And then the bucket size, I did a bucket test. Had a 5-gallon bucket. And that took, it was actually more like 20 seconds to fill. So that means my GPM is 15, and that's important to know. Now, one thing it's going to ask you over here is your sprinkler system, whether you need anti-siphon valves, and that has to do with the backflow prevention that's required by your municipality. If you want to learn more about that, go ahead and hit that card up there in the top right to learn about backflow prevention. In my municipality, anti-siphon valves are not required because we actually have a big backflow valve that's installed when we purchase the property. So and then we do talk about freezing area. We do live in a freezing area, so this is going to tell the system whether you need to bury your pipes. It's going to give you the recommendation of 12 inches if you're in a freezing area. If not, it will say you can bury them a little more shallow. All right, so you can accept those settings and move on. Next, it's going to have you place your manifolds. So these are your valves. First, it's going to determine how many of those you need. All right, so as you can see, I have 4 boxes, and they're up here in the top left of my property. I actually want them closer to the house is what I'm planning on doing. So I'm going to move those down here, rotate those. So I'm actually going to do 2 in the back and 2 on the side of the house. Over here. And in many cases, placing manifolds in a different location is sometimes more convenient rather than dragging a whole, all 4, potentially 4 zones in a valve box to different areas. Just drag one main line, and this will allow for a little bit more conducive and more inexpensive way to lay out your pipes. So next we're going to go to the arcs, and this is going to generate the plan and give us the initial idea of what we're dealing with. And we'll also notice anything here that needs fixing. So on mine, for example, I realize that they've got some sprinklers back here, and I just have gravel there. It doesn't need to be watered. Same thing on the side of my garage. So I should probably go back and we'll go back to the non-watered areas, and we're just going to place in, let's just say, gravel mulch. This really stretches from behind the shed all the way up. So kind of a strange feature in my property, but yeah, so that will definitely affect things. So we'll go back here. It's going to regenerate the plan. All right, and that actually got rid of about 3 different zones, so kind of nice. And you can see all the different zones that it's doing. You can highlight them, you can turn them off, so you can see by the different colors is where is all one zone. So here's another thing you can do as you're changing your property around. I know that we're going to put another flower garden or another sort of drip garden up there. So if you've already got this is also useful for those of you who have your property already installed. You might have a sprinkler system, but you want to make some changes like this. So there, I've got that new thing in, and that's going to regenerate. It'll make allocations for that. It doesn't look like it added anything. It just sort of changed that to a zone. All right, so the next thing we can do is go on to the heads, and you can see where all the sprinkler heads are going to be. And they're color-coded based on the zone they'll be in. And then next you can see how the pipes are going to be laid out, basically. This is useful if you're paying somebody to come in and trench your yard, or you're planning on doing it yourself. That's a map they can follow. Final step here, we go to the parts list and print plan. So from here you're going to have two steps. First of all, this is going to show you everything you need, and you know what you're using. So, and the cost. This is the estimated cost. You know, it's obviously not going to be the same everywhere you buy them, but this is estimated cost. So now you have the ability to add this to cart, which will add it to the cart of our Orbit store. On any order over $99, you get free shipping. So if you order this whole plan, it would be shipped to your door. So that's telling you what you'll need to get. Now the next thing, you can add that to cart and check out, or you can, and then the next step you can do is also print your plan. So this will generate a PDF of the entire plan, along with detailed instructions on how you lay that out. So I'm going to save this. All right. And now if I open that, you can run through that and see everything that it tells you. So it gives you, a checklist. Tells you about the color code, some of the supplies you'll need to purchase separately. These are things that we don't make and don't sell. All of them should be available at any hardware store. And then it gives you detailed instructions on the hookup of each part of your plan. So, here's how you would dig and install a valve box using our pre-assembled manifolds. Here's how you would assemble manifolds, all the way down to the installation of the pipe, the installation of the fittings and the heads, where to cut them, how to install those. Everything's detailed in here. It tells you how to install your timer, how to wire the timer, and then when you get down to the bottom, it's actually got the individual sections of your property detailed, giving you details on the flow rate that they're going to have, and the placement, where the pipe will go, where the valves will go, where the heads will go, what type of nozzles to use on which head, what type of head to use. It's all very detailed, so it's worth checking out. So anyway, that's how you do it. And then at the end there's your parts list. This is how you prepare a plan. Of course, this is saved. Oh, no, not that one. That's the blueprint. But you can save that there. You can, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, you can create multiple plans if you want to see different layout options. You can then just, it's all saved to the cloud, so you can just log back in. But anyway, if you have any questions, please let us know about this. We're happy to help, and we love to hear people's feedback on this tool. Thanks for watching. Bye.